What is going on, family? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing well. And in today's video, we want to talk about FOMC, the war, Bitcoin dominance, some token alpha, what's going on at Ondo Finance, and much, much more. It is a super important video, very well researched. And for my time and effort, if you could give me a like, subscribe, and a share, I would very much appreciate that. So first of all, Jerome Powell, JP, is going to spit tonight in about 5 hours time. What to expect here? Like we said yesterday, 99.9% certainty that there's no rate moves. What we're looking for is whether he's hawkish or dovish. And that's exactly what's going to move the needle. Post his press conference briefing, Q&A, that always moves the needle. And of course, I have done a significant community update, which I'll talk about in a minute. But first of all, let's look at the impact of the war and what we expect to happen with the US sending carrier strike groups from the South China Sea to the Arabian Gulf, Persian Gulf, however you want to say it. And of course, I've got friends all over the world. I hope all my friends are safe wherever they are, because this is going to lead to an important chart that we need to talk about after the Bitcoin dominance. Okay, so we need to make the war relevant. And what are we looking for? What are we afraid of apart from the physical harm? What could happen to our bags? All right. So the first thing we need to talk about, guys, is the Bitcoin dominance. And what you've noticed here is a 60% crash of the Bitcoin dominance was absolutely the levels that Bitcoin dominance came down to. You could see it came down to about 35%, 60%, absolute smash it in 2017. In 2021, Bitcoin dominance, and you can see that very clearly here, basically came down to a total market dominance of the 2021 cycle of a 35.5% crash. And that was about a Bitcoin dominance finally of about 38%. And here's the interesting part. In 2025, right, what we have so far is this ascending channel. Everybody's calling it bearish. Of course it is. That's exactly how these channels normally play out. But I want to show you something. I think Bitcoin dominance within this channel is going to peak around that danger zone that I've been talking about for months, or max pain around that 73% level. Why do I think that? Currently, we are sitting at a level with a previous all-time high of the Bitcoin dominance of around this 73%. And you can clearly see that that was the cycle high from 2021. Okay, would we beat that? Would we actually form a new range? Again, that is something that has to be in consideration because of the fact that the institutional adoption is here. But we are not going to see anything, in my opinion, that is above this max pain zone. Where we find in resistance right now is at this 65% level. And that's, we are hoping we get the rejection from here. And of course, we crash down. Now, the chances are if we get a rejection from here, it becomes still a very strong Bitcoin dominance, but we could go to about that 50% level of the BTC dominance this cycle, considering that the first one was like, 2017 really, it was like 60.5 or just under, just call it 61%. And then you've obviously had that 34.5%. So I do believe over the years, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Hence why I think this time round, we will see a drop of about 25% from the current levels. But notice I'm measuring this from the 70%, 73% level. So my worst case scenario is that we come up here, right? We go from where we are now to come to this 73%. And we kind of then after that, we crash down from there. But that's just the hope. Really what I want is a continuous bearish print of the Bitcoin dominance, finding resistance here for the next few months and then dropping from here. But it just makes so much more sense to actually go test that higher level, and then come back down. Okay, so this is what I'm thinking could happen. We have one last major push of the Bitcoin dominance, and then we come crashing down to these levels over here. That is as clear as a daylight. What does this mean, DXB? Well, that just means that your emotions have to go on F off, right? And you just have to look at this market, you know, whether you've got $10 or $1 million, you just have to buy whenever these markets crash. That's as simple as that, because ultimately what you need is what we've always talked about here in the channel, which is without having a Bitcoin rotation, right? And this is no different to this cycle. Without having that drop, there is no old season. I don't know what the argument, especially for those of you who just only hold micro caps. Sorry to be the bearer of the bad news, but we just have to wait unless a whale steps into your particular micro cap. It's in a good narrative and it just pumps. The irrational phase of the bull market will begin. And again, we have specific times between the cycles, and I don't think that changes. But there is a complication in the story, and that is a new chart you need to get familiar with. And this is the crude oil price, right? So oil markets are our worst enemies right now, okay? So let's go to the daily oil prices, and you would see why I'm absolutely petrified of this particular chart. As you see the news of the likes of the Western-based carrier groups coming into the Gulf, you'd have to think that the energy markets are really what's going to cause inflation to go up and again delay or potentially even ruin our plans. Why is that? Life becomes more expensive. And let me just give you why crude prices, right? Yesterday we talked about why the Ukraine crisis increased the price of crude oil. Eventually, you've been there, done that, and things just get better overall. However, oil prices right now, if you look at January, oil prices peaked at just let's call it $80, right? 79.2, $80. That was peak oil price back in January, right? So you might be thinking, okay, we are, at the moment, we're still only on the daily, we're around that $73. What's the problem here? Let me just give you an oil-based analysis so you can understand why this is such a dangerous situation. The US carrier group, Trump threatening Iran, US getting involved is all a bunch of bullshit, because right now these markets are crashing, and of course, we can say Bitcoin is holding strong, but you never know. If this happens, then be prepared for a potential price dumps, right? Just be prepared for that. There's no other ways to put it, okay? This is not a, we're going to get rich today. No, this is a delayed gratification, and perhaps just forgetting about the quality bags you're buying now, hoping for better market conditions. There are those that would say, oh, we should sell all of these risk assets, and that would have been valid before Trump rugged it, right? So if you're in green, even $1,000 on certain positions, just take out some profits, right? But the markets right now are not, for me, in my opinion, I'm just putting any kind of money that I have to what I believe in slowly. My bags are packed for the best part of 4 years, and I'm planning to sell at the next level. Now, the argument is, could we go into a bear market? Nothing's off the table. But when oil prices go up, there is an economic chain reaction. Higher oil prices equal to higher inflation. Oil is the global input cost, i.e. your fuel, your transportation, your manufacturing. You could even link it to food prices, right? Food has to be produced. You have to use energy. Then you have to transport using energy. Rise in oil means a rise in CPI, okay? The last CPI reading that we had, CPI data that we had was very much favorable, okay? So if you imagine these items right now, all major consumer, all items less food and energy are 2.8%. And energy was down in the last, 3.5%, major energy categories, right? But stay with me for a minute, because honestly, you will take a lot of benefit from this particular reading here. What happens is, as these things rise because of the cost of energy, inflation equals to central banks tightening, right? We're talking about JP spitting today, and you have to have some kind of a foresight as to why this is going to be potentially, maybe a hawkish, not sure. Maybe because of the pressure coming from Trump, he may have a different kind of stance on what's happening right now. But the last CPI data was cooler than expected. It was good, right? So central banks will be looking to tighten, especially the Fed may raise or hold these rates. And we are seeing 99.999% that there is no pivot now. But remember, the market has priced into 2 rate cuts for 2025. Higher interest rates equal to inflation tightening. And of course, money flows out of speculative assets like crypto. Always happens. Stronger USD bond yields, and we will look at the USDT chart in a minute. Generally, that means a crypto, it just means a little bit of a crypto winter. Okay, higher oil equals inflation. Fed holds firm, stronger dollar, stronger yields. Bitcoin struggles, of course, when the DXY or the dollar index and 10-year yields rise. Okay, so historically, what is the evidence for this? You may say, well, oil prices. Yesterday we talked about oil prices getting to $130 during the attack of Russia onto Ukraine, right? And of course, that there were sanctions, supply fears, and we're talking about 25% of all global oil going through the Strait of Hormuz. So this is very impactful economic moment. I told you they generate a global war every 20 years. That's been the standard since First World War. You can look at the data and separate how many years these conflicts are separated by. But whether it's Afghanistan or the first Gulf War or whatever, these things happen on clock because they are good for the armament and defense industries where people make a lot of money. Okay, and in mid-2023, energy spike, OPEC plus supply cuts drove oil prices from $70 to $90 a barrel. Market began to price persistent inflation, and BTC stalled, and at that time it was around $25,000 to $27,000. So we may actually find a period where we just either stagnate or go down. And there are exceptions, of course, to every theory. In some cases, crypto can hedge against inflation, like gold, BTC, but it's only true if the inflation is monetary, i.e. the growth of M2 driven and not cost driven like oil is going to see. And it's already seen. We went from these lows here, right? If you look at this on a daily basis, a few weeks ago, oil, Trump was celebrating the cheapest oil prices. Now, the dynamic is, of course, he was talking about the fact that oil is historically low under him right now. And, then he fell out with Elon, and that had an impact on the EV market with Tesla, right? So if these things play out, this obviously right now, they've obviously not given subsidies to the electric, car manufacturers. And it's a place or a space where China really dominates. So where are we going with this? Now, of course, if oil keeps rising, leading to, stagflation, potential low growth, high inflation situation, that's going to be bad for us as well. Now, of course, the current market, oil is around this kind of pushing towards this $75 to $80 level. Of course, like I said, we did peak here at around just under $80. And that's usually a place where these things normally tend to begin, right? So what do? We're in the market. We've just had a decent CPI. And of course, the next CPI reading, plus the tariffs, because many people have forgotten that we've had tariffs that are literally going to come back at some point and become a topical discussion. Crypto correction may be temporary, of course, but I do still expect the cycle, the overall cycle growth, to remain the same by the end of the run. Okay, so all in all, crypto right now, based on whatever you're looking at, whether you're looking at things on market cap level, whether you're looking at a volume level, and you can see here volume is down, market cap, total market cap is down, of course, and Bitcoin right now sits at a crucial level of 104,539, and I do believe hopefully we'll try and cling on to the 105 level, but of course if we fail, then of course the $100,000 or 101 is the next level of defense. Now, it's not doom and gloom, okay? I'll keep telling you to get Nansen, and many of you were slating me for posting Zeus as a potential investment. It is up 25%. Smart money is accumulating this like there's no tomorrow. Now, I posted this at a couple of $1 million market cap initially, and of course right now is at 21 million. There's that argument which Zeus, which this, I always said CC8 is absolutely the one that I was backing, and based on the evidence, right, all of the Zeuses are doing well. This one is 150 million. Of course, there's a few other fake ones as well, but this one has a potential to grow as it gets more listings. All right. Now, in terms of meme coins, I'm also very much confident that the Cocoro team will sooner or later land a HTX listing. Of course, it came slightly further down than obviously we wanted. We want to try and reclaim this level, but this morning there was tons and tons of news. Again, Cocoro being teased around the HTX corridors, right? And again, it's a formality. They've reposted it today. HTX know exactly what they're doing, and the playbook. Somebody did ask me in the Discord what is going on with the listing. People don't know whether that's a top signal for Cocoro. And my suggestion was, listen, if you go back to the summer of 2024, HTX picked up Cocoro at a $18 million market cap, and that was during like June, summer months anyway. And of course, Nero, they picked up Nero at 18 million, listed it on HTX, and then it was, it was listed on Binance by September. And these are the kind of timescales we're looking at anyway, guys. So yes, you can, of course, HTX is going to bring a lot of volume, and you can list it as, on HTX. However, you could also see if there's additional listings. And if that's the playbook, that's what I'm prepared to wait for. All right. Then we want to talk about, quickly see what's going on with JoJo. I have spoken to the JoJo team today, and they haven't even marketed this, right? This is a project that is tiny, but they haven't marketed fully, right? You could see we're still holding that trend, and it's going to stay that way. Of course, the team is looking for a turnaround of things before they start adding a ton of marketing. So we wait patiently for that, but they are going to start marketing. At the moment, it's at 300K. It hasn't broken trend yet. It's still on this trend line. So I would say, yep, grab a bag of this important, absolutely micro cap, in my opinion. People are saying, oh, DXB, why are you so confident? Because it's held up so well. It held up so well, and I know that the team is working very, very hard. It is hilarious. I've played the game. And look, the cynics will always say, when we talk about Zeus or Cocoro or JoJo or Lofi, they would always talk about, the fact that this is, what's going on? Is it a paid shield? No, it's not. I announce these things sometimes without even actually having enough of it or purchasing it, or I'm reacting to my own excitement when I find a good meme coin. And most of all, we have an excellent track record of having very good meme coins over the years. And I do believe meme coins will be running very, very hard. Lofi, the Yeti, is still at a very good level, back to $32 million market cap. And I do believe if it comes down even further, I am super, super interested. Again, we bought these lows. Could we see those lows again? It's anyone's guess at the moment, but I do like the Sui comeback and the Sui narrative to once again go absolutely bonkers. All right. So that's what I would do. The reason I include these meme coins, of course, if you look at, for example, Beam is at a historically low price, right? I mean, ridiculously undervalued. And this is what Beam is doing right now. Is Beam a good buy? Of course it is a good buy. This is not even, let me just go to Beam. Yeah. So of course it is. It is a very, very good project. If you look at this on the bigger time frames, you'll understand exactly why. At the moment, the chart may not indicate that, but it is at the lowest. Market cap for Beam right now is at $275 million. All right, and there are many projects under their psychological price. Of course, gaming hasn't run, but I am looking at that being a possibly $5 to $10 billion project. Big announcement by Ondo launching global market alliance with industry-leading wallets, exchanges, custodians, and they got in bed with the likes of Solana, 1inch, Trust Wallet. This is very, very important. I have said TradFi money, if it's going to come through anywhere, it's going to come through Ondo Finance. All right. So look out for Ondo Finance, guys. Look out for the oil prices. And most importantly, keep your eyes and ears drilled on this Bitcoin dominance. And there you have it. Again, like I said to you many, many times before, if you are in it for the long term, I know a lot of us are struggling right now. Just mentally, people are finding it very difficult to comprehend all of the shit that's going on around the world. And the truth is, you're not alone. Everyone that I know of in crypto, there are smart wallets that I'm looking at accumulating certain projects, and they're struggling. Their P&Ls. I get to see their P&Ls. That's why it's important to have, something like Nansen AI. I genuinely believe that they offer this crazy amount of utility that allows you to make major decisions. In addition to that, Solana ETFs, of course, is going to be very, very bullish for the whole ecosystem. Of course, here's a deep dive article about Camino, but there's Gito, there's other protocols on Solana DeFi that will do immensely well. So July, hopefully, will be the time when they announce that. All right, guys? So anyway, stay safe out there. Let's see what Jerome Powell comes up with. And like I said, do not buy on emotion. Do not sell on emotion. If you have to go and eat, cornflakes and water for the next 6 months or next 2 months, even 3 months, I think it's going to be very brutal. But even if you have cornflakes and water, just buy what you need and play with your kids. Go to the park, take the missus out, go for walks, right? Because you can't control these things. These things are technically, emotionally, psychologically out of our hands. So why bother yourself, right? Why bother yourself? The outlook is the bull market should last about, the run should be about 1,450 days or whatever it is. We're clocking up about 1,000 days of that. 1,000, 200, whatever it is. That's it. Take the emotions out, guys. I hope you found this information very useful, and I will catch you on the next one. Like I said,